Chris Johnson, one of the fastest running backs in NFL history.
Chris Johnson is going to have a Titans touchdown.
He retired in 2017 and has been out of the spotlight. But today, he is sharing something deeply personal.
First, I want people to know that I'm still me. ALS has changed what my body can do, but it hasn't changed who I am.
In 2025, at the age of 39, Johnson was diagnosed with ALS, the disease progressing so rapidly that he now uses his eyes to trigger a speech-generating device to speak.
The disease progressing so rapidly that he now uses his eyes to trigger a speech-generating device to speak.
If sharing my story helps even one person get diagnosed sooner, inspires more research, or gives another family hope, then it's worth it.
When did you notice that something was off?
I first noticed weakness in my right hand. At first, it was little things like my grip didn't feel right, and I wasn't as strong as I've always been.
His wife, Brittany, thought it was something much simpler.
Brittany, what did you think it was at the time?
I thought because of football and, his career, that it had to be something with that, maybe a pinched nerve or something along those lines, but never ALS.
We hoped it was something else, but after thorough testing, they finally came down with a diagnosis of ALS. They told us about a medication that might extend life by a few months. Then they told us to get our affairs in order. It was hard hearing that, but after watching Good Morning America and seeing Dr. Merritt with Eric Dane, we reached out to her. She was willing to think more creatively, offering experimental treatments that might help and advance research. That's one of the reasons this disease can be so shocking. It can happen to someone who never expected it.
And for me, it's shocking. It's hard to process it for me because I know you, Chris, from just the incredible athlete that you are. How do you process it?
Honestly, I don't know if you ever fully process it. At first you're in shock, then you realize you have two choices. You can give up or you can fight. I chose to fight. It's continued to progress much faster than I ever imagined. I want people to understand just how quickly ALS can attack your body. Just over a year ago, I was picking up my 7-year-old daughter, so she make a wish with her birthday cake. Today, I couldn't do that. People sometimes look at the physical disability and assume you're not still the same person inside. I still think the same, I still dream, I still love my family. My body just doesn't cooperate.
What are the doctors telling you about the treatment and the progression?
Having doctors who are willing to collaborate and explore every reasonable option has meant a lot to my family and me. Right now there isn't a cure, but we're seeing more research, more clinical trials, and more promising ideas than ever before. Seeing how hard these doctors and researchers are working gives me hope. As long as they're fighting for people with ALS, I'm going to keep fighting too.
Yeah, and I want to thank Chris and Brittany. Yeah, and I want to thank Chris and Brittany. Yeah, and I want to thank Chris and Brittany. Yeah, and I want to thank Chris and Brittany. Yeah, and I want to thank Chris and Brittany. Yeah. And soon after Chris was diagnosed, they recorded his voice, which is why the speech-generating machine sounds exactly like him. And Chris also told me awareness is great, but it's not enough. ALS needs funding. ALS needs funding.
ALS needs funding.
That was a great interview.
It really was.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
That was a great interview. That was a great interview. That was a great interview. That was a great interview.
Hey guys, what's up? Jake here. And I just wanted to make this video because I felt it was important to bring awareness to ALS. And I know that there are two types of people who are watching this video right now. There are those who totally believe in everything they just saw in that interview with Michael Strahan and Chris Johnson. And then there are those who may be skeptical on whether or not this whole ALS thing is even real. Well, I'm here to assure you that the technology that he is using to speak does indeed exist. You heard Michael Strahan say in that interview that he is using a speech generating machine, and he uses his eyes to select the words that he wants to say. And then, since they've recorded his voice in the past, they can use that voice sample so that when they generate his speech using this machine, it will sound just like Chris Johnson. Well, I'm using that exact same technology right now. I'm using my eyes to select words on my computer screen right now, and I'm choosing all of these words with my eyeballs. In fact, I think this technology is awesome. It's revolutionary. And not only that, it's saving me a bunch of time. I no longer have to use my mouth to say words anymore. I can just use my eyes to speak, so therefore I no longer have to draw up any breath out of my lungs and actually use any of my energy to speak. So I think this is actually going to be a huge time saver for me, and I will be able to get so much more accomplished. So lucky for you guys, I'm going to be using this same technology to make all of my videos from now on. So whenever you see me on camera, I will no longer be speaking using my actual mouth and breath from my lungs. Instead, I will be using this new awesome revolutionary technology that former running back Chris Johnson is currently using to speak to get over his disabilities with ALS.
All right, let's get serious now. I wasn't using a speech generating machine. I was just pretending that I had the Chris Johnson technology. One of the red flags I'm going to start with. How do I even know that that was the real Chris Johnson who played in the NFL? If I look up old pictures of Chris Johnson and then I compare him with the guy from the interview with Michael Strahan, well, I see some differences, so I can't really say for sure whether or not the guy in the interview is the same Chris Johnson who used to play in the NFL. So that's just my first red flag. Red flag number 2, he played in the NFL. You know, the National Fixed League, the National Fake and Phony League, where guys pretend to play football in order to fleece the sports gamblers. Huh, yeah, that NFL. So a guy who played pretend football for a number of years now has ALS and has to use his eyeballs in order to speak. Okay, and I'm supposed to be sad? What, am I supposed to cry? What, am I supposed to send my money to the Chris Johnson Foundation for ALS research? I personally don't believe a word that comes out of Chris Johnson's mouth. And in this case, I don't believe a word that doesn't come out of his mouth either. Why would I trust a guy who played fake football? Why would I trust this diagnosis on television that he has ALS? I don't find Chris Johnson to be a trustworthy guy because he played in the NFL. So therefore, I wouldn't put it past him to pretend that he had ALS. Yeah, that's right. I think there's a chance Chris Johnson would pretend to have ALS. And furthermore, I don't believe for a second that Chris Johnson was using his eyeballs to select the words that the speaker would say out loud on his behalf. I don't believe that he was choosing his words with this new technology, this speech generating machine. I don't believe that for a second. I think it was trickery. Kind of like the trickery that I was doing earlier when I pretended to use a speech generator. So they're using the same style of trickery that they used in the past with Stephen Hawking. They would bring out the Stephen Hawking character, and a long time ago, they would have Stephen Hawking mumble some incoherent ramblings. And they would have a human interpreter, in this case, Larry Bird's brother, and he would interpret what Stephen Hawking was saying.
The Pope said it was fine for them to inquire into the early history of the universe, but they should not ask questions about the Big Bang itself. Because that was the work of God.
So they would trick the public into thinking that this was Stephen Hawking's words, Stephen Hawking's thoughts coming from the human interpreter. And so then later on, many years later, they advanced the technology by getting rid of the human interpreter. So Larry Bird's brother was gone. So then they had this talking box start doing all of the talking for Stephen Hawking. So they didn't need a human interpreter anymore, and Stephen Hawking no longer needed to mumble, so they could just have the Stephen Hawking character sit there like a comatose vegetable, and then they could have the box, the robotic box, do all of the talking.
We can and must use our curiosity and intelligence to look to the stars.
The audience viewing this on TV, they believed it. They believed not only that Stephen Hawking was a genius, but they also believed that the words coming out of the speaker of the box were actually Stephen Hawking's thoughts in his head. And now they have an even more awesome technology, an even better technology than Stephen Hawking got to use. Now, former running back Chris Johnson, suffering with ALS, he gets to use his eyes to stare at a computer screen. Just move his eyes around a little bit, blink his eyes, select some words, and thus he can create entire paragraphs, and he can do interviews on television. Now, if you're the type of person who believes that Stephen Hawking was a genius and that the robot box was actually speaking his thoughts and doing the translating, if you believe that, then I'm sure you also believe that Chris Johnson is suffering from ALS and he's choosing his words with his eyeballs using an even more advanced technology than Stephen Hawking got to use. And if you believe both of those things, then you're also going to believe that I am a gigantic asshole for not believing in any of it. And that's fine with me. I accept that the people who believe that Stephen Hawking is a genius and a robot voice translated his thoughts are also the same people who are going to believe that Chris Johnson, suffering from ALS, is choosing his words with his eyeballs, and that those people are going to think I'm a total piece of shit for not believing in all of those things that I just mentioned. What do you guys think about this technology that Chris Johnson is using? Do you really believe Chris Johnson was selecting words with his eyes? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I want to hear from all of you. Yes, each and every one of you who's watching right now, I want you all to comment down below. hit the thumbs up button. Make sure you are subscribed with the little bell notifications turned on so that maybe you get notified next time I upload or do a live stream. And I will see all of you in the next video or the next live stream. Click on one of these videos on the screen right now and keep watching my content. Yeah, click one of these, like this one, or maybe this one. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye-bye.